Good morning, everybody. I would like to call this Development and Property Committee meeting to order on Tuesday, April the 9th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. As we gather this morning, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the First Nations. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. We are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Has roll call been taken, Evelyn?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and we have quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then we will move to the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on March the 5th, 2024. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from Town of Petawawa. Are there any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. So that brings us to our public meeting regarding official plan amendment number 44. And I would just ask those in the audience if you could please turn off your cell phones so that anybody who's coming forward to speak doesn't have to worry about interruptions. So at this point, I will call the public meeting to order, and I will advise the attendees of the statutory requirement that this public meeting is being held by the County of Renfrew in accordance with the requirements of Sections 17 and 22 of the Planning Act of Ontario. The purpose of the public meeting is to hear public comments on an application to amend the County of Renfrew official plan. The County of Renfrew is the approval authority and renders decisions for amendments to the county official plan. There's a sign-in sheet available, and we request that you provide your name and mailing address if you would like to receive a notice of decision for this application. Please note if a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the County of Renfrew to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the County of Renfrew before the proposed official plan amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the County of Renfrew before the proposed official plan amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or the public body as a party. So at this point, I will ask Lindsay Bennett to provide an overview of the proposed land use changes and how notice of the public meeting was provided to the public. Lindsay, please. And maybe I'll just get you to wait a few minutes until we get the chairs set up so people have an opportunity to take a seat. I think we're good, Lindsay, if you want to go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose and effect of the proposed official plan amendment is to introduce alternative notice policies for Planning Act applications by deleting the wording in the current section 1718 of the public consultation and replacing it with new public consultation wording. With the announcement that Metroland is shutting down its print division, it has left the County of Renfrew and local municipalities without a print paper that reaches the public to satisfy the Planning Act requirements for circulation. The Planning Act allows for local alternatives for providing notice if the official plan contains policies specifying details of the method of notice. This amendment would introduce the required policies to allow municipalities to utilize alternative notice provisions under the Planning Act. Alternative notices may also include any or all of the following: personal service or prepaid first-class mail, newspaper notices, print or e-version, email, public notice signs, surveys, electronic or mail-out, neighborhood open houses and/or public information centers, neighborhood working groups or focus groups, information meetings, statutory public meetings, website or internet engagement platforms such as Zen City, and/or any methods as deemed necessary by the approval authority and established by an amendment to this plan. The notice of application and public meeting was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The notice of application and public meeting was placed in all of the local newspapers, electronic and paper, in the County of Renfrew, including the Daily News, the Valley Gazette, the North Renfrew Times, the Eganville Leader, and the Ottawa Valley News for Renfrew and Arnprior. It was also posted on the County of Renfrew's website and was given to the local municipalities for placement on their website. It was also posted on the County of Renfrew's social media platforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. So at this point, I would ask that if there are any members of the public who wish to provide comment relating to the proposed application, that they may come forward to speak, and I would just ask that they provide their name and address following their verbal submission. Yes, please come forward.
Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Perfect. My name is Donna Burns. I am the Vice President of the Ontario Landowners. I am also the President for the Renfrew County chapter of the Ontario Landowners. Plus, I'm a resident here in Whitewater Township. I'm a property owner. I'm also a shareholder and an investor in our communities. The first thing I'd like to bring to your attention, well, first of all, I wonder, do you have a quorum here? I see a lot of your mayors and reeves absent. Do you actually have a quorum?
We have quorum because this is D&P committee, so not all of county council is in attendance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for answering. I'd like to bring to your attention the 2022 Municipal Councilor's Guide. I don't know how many of you have actually read it. It's part of your job as a council member to know and understand your roles. And in the very first paragraph, under role of council, councillor, and staff, it says, in general, council and staff work together towards the common goal of serving the needs of those who live in the municipality. That's important. It is the role of council to represent the public and to consider the well-being of the interests of the municipality. I'm going to cherry pick certain sections out of this thing because I want to highlight what's important here. It is the role of council to represent the public and to consider the well-being and interests of the municipality. It's also to ensure the accountability and transparency of the operations of the municipality, including the activities of the senior management of the municipality. In other words, the key responsibilities as a councillor are to support the municipality in its operations while ensuring that the public and municipality's well-being and interests are maintained. To ensure the success of being accountable and transparent, you must also not be afraid to face the public when it is time to hold a public meeting. There have been a lot of changes within the operation of the municipalities that you as a council are approving, but it appears you want to sneak these changes through without really consulting the public. Holding public meetings such as this one today at 9:30 a.m. during working hours and in these council chambers that might hold 25 people, clearly with the intent that very few members of the public will attend, so that future notices of public meetings will discreetly be advertised, and that future decisions on how a municipality performs its operations will continue to be hidden and not transparent from the majority of the ratepayers or shareholders, those who have invested their livelihoods into the communities within this county and whose properties are threatened with being devalued and shut down as a result of foreign interference and their policies being introduced to you by the staff, senior management staff, who do not respect and are not bound by the legislation that you as a council member are bound by. The public are catching on, and they're not happy. They're not blind. They see how their elected officials sit silent at a public meeting, not allowed to answer questions from the public, and being instructed that only staff will respond. They see how the staff control what the council can and cannot do. They see that you are not doing your due diligence in understanding and performing your role as a council and council member, as well as understanding the role of staff. In the past month, it's become public news with the unrest of the citizens towards their municipal councils warranting the resignations of council members. First, we have the town of Renfrew here in our own county requesting that their mayor and Reeve both resign. Excuse me. Now there's another one at a small town in Quebec where 3 councillors have now resigned. This is because of accountability and transparency. The elected officials are in the line of fire from the residents when they don't understand their roles and allow themselves to become dependent on what their staff tell them. It's time for a change, don't you think? It's time you remember why you were elected. It's time to protect those who were sworn, thank you very much, Jason. It's time to protect those you swore in your election campaign to protect, those who trusted you to protect their businesses, their homes, their farming operations. You offer 11 alternatives for providing public notice of meetings. Well, let's make a change by opening the door of communication and give all ratepayers a fair opportunity to attend your public meetings for consultation. Not everyone has access to a computer or has access to electronic or social media, but that doesn't mean they're not a shareholder or an investor in this county. Not everyone is part of a neighborhood focus group, but that doesn't mean they're not an investor in this county. I would like to propose that you go with the first of your 11 alternatives. Personal service or prepaid first-class mail. Let's begin by opening this door and serving the needs of those who have invested their life savings with their private properties and businesses and work with them to allow future growth and prosperity for our communities. Let's be more transparent and accountable, and most of all, genuine in trying to preserve and protect our homes and businesses and understanding the Municipal Act and the Planning Act and its true intent. Let's rebuild the trust and all work together by making all residents aware of future public meetings and then move on from there to continue working together. That's it. Thank you very much. Oh, I'd like to ask one question first. Can I have a show of hands who might agree from the audience who might agree with me in having personal service and being notified? Okay, that speaks volumes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Albert Krasinski from Alice. I have to warn you, I can't come anywhere close to that presentation. That was excellent. But I'll offer my few little thoughts here. Like many of my fellow citizens of Renfrew County, I do not own a computer. Therefore, I request that you adopt number 1 of your proposed 11 different options as printed in your notice of application and public meeting, as published in the Pembroke Observer and News dated Thursday, March the 14th, 2024. Number 1 option reads, personal service or prepaid first-class mail. Why does Renfrew County Council hold public meetings on regular workdays anywhere between 8 and 5 when most hard-working blue-collar workers are striving to earn an honest day's wages and put food on the table for their families? Now, prior to that unnecessary and bungling amalgamation process of townships around the year 2000, municipal meetings were held in the evenings or on Saturdays, so working ratepayers had a chance to attend and voice their opinions without having to register at least 1 week in advance. Why can't we return to a process such as this once again? Could it be that there's an ulterior motive here? When people are elected to municipal government positions, they take an oath to protect and serve the interests of their ratepayers, not vice versa, where the ratepayers are expected to serve them. I expect elected officials to honor this oath. I think it is time that our elected officials start challenging Toronto. And you can do it. It just takes a little backbone. We are a whole different thinking group of people in our great district of Renfrew County. Please stand up to Toronto. Like I said once again, you can do it. Now, I'm sure that all members of council were here own their own private property. What I expect each of you to realize is that what ratepayers are fighting for, and ultimately accomplishing, also directly affects you. In the end, we all win. In closing, I wish to be notified of the outcome of this meeting regarding the proposed change adopted by this council, and I expect it to be first-class mail. I'll give a copy of this with my name on to after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krasinski. Are there any other individuals who would like to make a public presentation?
Hello, my name is Doris Murray, and I belong to Killaloe, Hagerty, and Richards Township. And I take note that our mayor is not here, or any other representative. Are there any councillors here from Killaloe, Hagerty, and Richards? Okay.
No, not as part of this committee.
Anyway, I want to say that I agree with Donna Burns and with Albert Krasinski about the timing and the how to get in touch with the ratepayers of the county and the municipalities. The only one that's acceptable is a letter sent by mail to the public, all the public, because like Donna said and like Albert said, we don't all have computers, we don't all get the newspaper, and you know, like, this is not right. You're working for us, and we expect to be treated properly. The second point I have is, I think Albert mentioned it, Meetings, public meetings have to be at a time when all the ratepayers have access. So my idea, as well as his, anytime after 7 o'clock, not before. People who work hard all day cannot have supper and get organized and out to a meeting any earlier than 7 o'clock. Or if they want to have them on Saturday, that would be fine with me too. And I'm sure it would be fine with a lot of other people. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Except on another topic, I noticed that we don't have a ramp for people with wheelchairs and canes and things. How is that?
I'll ask staff to speak to that, please. Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have two entrances here at the county building. If you remember the old health unit entrance to the west, we do have a flat surface and an elevator downstairs.
And how do you get from there over here?
It's a sidewalk coming into a side entrance, a public entrance at the community services or POA entrance.
I know how to get over there because I take my water samples there. But if I come in there, how do I get over here?
If after the meeting, I'll show you, and it's very kind of a straightforward kind of process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burry. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, please come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I see a few faces around here that I've seen in the past, but a lot of ones that I have not. So for those who don't know me, my name is John Reinwald, or everyone calls me Jed. I live in the town of Laurentian Hills. I used to sit on council from 2014 to 2022, and it was some pretty exciting times there, so glad to be back. I'm here today to mention to the folks, to see the people out here who, including myself, who have some overall concerns with respect to the processes that could be put in place with regards to information. When I was mayor of the town of Laurentian Hills, prior to becoming mayor, I went to every door in the town of Laurentian Hills. There's 1,362 doors that I knocked on. Many of those doors are very rural, and many of those areas do not have, some have internet, it's very restrictive. Many do not have. It's a lot of seniors in the community, and there are some areas where internet is provided and fairly well, but that's only in a couple of small areas within the town of Laurentian Hills. I remember having to, when I got a package in from the county, which could be anything from 400 to 600 pages in length, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, I would have times to do the download, I'd have to leave my home and travel 12 kilometers to a municipal building to do the download on the information before I could look at it. So even where I'm living, about halfway between Chalk River and Deep River, the problems were still, and they're still there. Well, they were there up until a few months ago, where I switched from Bell to another company where things are working okay now. So from my perspective, we're not ready yet to go all electronic. We have a lot of people out there who are very interested in what's going on, but they don't have the ways and means of doing it, other than driving here to come to the meetings and so on. So my position on this would, by mail, the old snail mail, the only way I can see it right now until we get, systems in place to make it better, or a combination of the two. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reinwald. Great to see you back in the council chambers as well. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak?
Good morning. My name is Bruce Owens. I own Owens Electric, small contractor, electrical contractor in Chalk River. This was important enough to me to take a half a day off work to be here. I found out about this through a friend the other day. I didn't get a chance to read the paper. I didn't see the notices. I talked to many seniors that had no idea this was even happening. Customers of mine, my customer base are mostly seniors. So I do believe, as Donna stated, mail is the only way this is going to work for many people, especially in our rural area also. And as far as meetings go, if the meeting was in the evening, I wouldn't have to take half a day off work to be here. This is costing me money and customers are waiting. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? I'll ask the second. Oh, thank you.
I forgot one small point. Everyone can hear me. I forgot to mention I'm Vice President of the Renfrew County Private Landowners Association. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask the second time, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? And once again, I'll ask a third time, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? So then at this point, I will ask that any people with written submissions to please leave them with the clerk. And I will turn back to Ms. Bennett for her statements.
Thank you, Chair. So we had received one written comment from the Township of Bon Cher Valley who indicated that they would like to see local newspapers remain on the list.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. And are there any comments from Mr. Howarth, the planner?
No, thank you, Chair. I think Ms. Bennett has all the comments for us, for our department. She might have final next steps, recommendations, or last comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So anybody who would like to leave written submissions with the clerk, it's Ms. Dombrowski, and she's sitting at the back. So please leave your submissions with her before you go. At this point, I would adjourn this public meeting, and I want to thank everybody for coming out and participating. Yeah.
Are comments made, are they recorded? So the people that aren't here that are a member of your committee get to listen to them later through Zoom, or? The comments are, anybody that spoke is recorded?
I'll ask Mr. Davis to answer that.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, this is being recorded, and so you'll see it on our YouTube video feed. And also we have Lindsay Bennett to have some final comments, Chair.
You said not everybody was here for the meeting?
Yep, so this is being recorded.
Final decision.
Yes.
When will the final decision be made?
Just speak into the mic.
Sorry.
This way it's on the recording, sir.
Oh, sorry, I'm just wondering if all the people that spoke today will be recorded. You replied yes to that. And how many committee members are not present, and when will the decision be made?
So I'll ask Ms. Bennett if she could speak to that in final comments, please.
Just before, if I could, Chair, so just for clarity and for the public, so this is the Development and Property Committee, of part of County Council, and we have all members here of the Development and Property Committee here today. Chair?
Ms. Bennett, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we just want to thank everyone for coming today and providing us their comments. As next steps, a staff report will be presented later this morning to this Development and Property Committee. The Development and Property Committee will have to make a recommendation to County Council to either adopt and approve the application or to refuse the amendment. At the County Council meeting, County Council will consider the amendment, staff's recommendations, and the recommendation of this committee and decide to adopt and approve or to refuse the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for those final comments, Ms. Bennett. And at this point, then, we will adjourn this public meeting, and thank you once again for coming and participating in the process. We'll continue with our regular Development and Property Committee meeting at this time, and I will turn it over to Director Davis, please.
Thanks again, Chair, and thanks for the public for coming out to the open house, their public meeting. Appreciate their input. Starting on page 8 of your committee package, for information, item number 1 is the 2023 unaudited financial statements. The spreadsheets can be found on page 12 to 17. And what I might do, if I could, Chair, just to highlight some of the items and numbers within those attachments, and then we do have the managers here for any specific questions for each divisional unit. So if I could, if you look at page 17 of your appendix or your report, we are under budget for our department by $351,000. And as an overall statement, the majority of the surplus is to do with salaries and benefits. But if you do look at, if I could draw your attention to item number, starting kind of backwards from that page, page 13, in the planning section, in the planning section, so if you look at, page 16, again, the surpluses are for benefits and salaries, and especially the estimations of the income, the revenues from severances and subdivisions are up based on what the early estimates were back in 2023. Same idea for GIS is the salaries and benefits. Moving on to the forestry section on page 14. Again, the salaries, we started or hired the person about 3 months or 4 months into the year when we budgeted a full year for this person. And so that'll equal out in 2024. And also to draw your attention to our revenues from our county forests. Every year we budget, as a reminder, $180,000. And last year was a very good year for the county forestry program of $431,000. We have some good bids and also some carryovers from 2022 year. So that's why you see the surplus, but also you'll see a transfers to reserves of about $250,000 as directed through the forest management plan way back in 2016, I do believe. So, Chair, I'm going to leave those at the high level of why we're under budget for 2023, and maybe I'll stop, and if there's any questions directly to the different managers of our department, I'll stop for there.
Thank you, Director Davis. Are there any other questions from committee? I'm seeing none, so please go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Thank you again, Chair. So item number 2, back on page 8 of your committee package, an update on the Affordable Housing Summit that was held last Thursday, and time does fly. It seems just like yesterday. A great turnout for the Housing Summit. You probably have seen the media release if you weren't part and parcel of the Housing Summit. Over 100 people participated in the Housing Summit at the Mattaway Center in the town of Renfrew last Thursday, from developers, investors, builders, the elected. I'd say a good turnout and a good discussion. The whole idea of the Housing Summit was sharing of information back and forth. Overall, I think we have some good leads on some possible ideas for housing initiatives within Renfrew County, especially during the discussion of the expression of interest that was released through our department here. So our next steps will be to have a summary document created, provided to committee and council, then hopefully we can have it before county council. And also the idea of the timelines for the expression of interest, it ends in the expression of interest closes June the 7th, and then we'll have a summary presented hopefully to county council in August for different opportunities for this expression of interest, who and what may apply to this program. So, Chair, I do want to thank a couple of people, if I could, with some latitude. I want to thank the warden for helping out with the initiations and the discussions and the preamble for the Housing Summit. The chairs, yourself, Chair, Chair Giardini, also from Community Services. The direction from our CAO, Craig Kelly, to have the summit in place. Staff have been working, as you recall, on a number of initiatives, and I think we really needed to have this Housing Summit to really provide a focus for staff to move forward with a number of these initiatives, and hopefully we'll have some good announcements coming forward in the next couple of weeks to help with our housing initiatives. And it's a cautionary note to thank individual people, but I'm going to try. I'm sure I'll forget somebody, and that's the cautionary note. Starting with Miss Patrick and her team of Jennifer, Amanda, and Aspen. Trying to get this Housing Summit. It's always kind of, when I created a date within 7 weeks, and I remember Melissa Marquardt looking at me and saying, I'm not sure what I was doing that quick of a turnaround, but Melissa and her team got this going. So I highly, highly recommend, if you ever need support, Melissa is the person to lean on for any initiatives when time's of essence. So again, thank you to Melissa, Lacey, Bruce, Chief Nolan also for all the input for this Housing Summit. It wasn't as simple as I thought it was going to be. but it turned out well. The venue was perfect, and the interaction between the public and the staff, and the staff basically, is tremendous. So again, thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, do you want me to?
Well, I didn't know if you were looking for more feedback from the committee or if...
Sorry, Chair. Maybe I'll stop there in case there is feedback.
Okay. Any other, well, I would just like to say that I hope, Melissa, you're not feeling any pressure after those comments. But I would echo that it was a great turnout in spite of the weather, and certainly some really interesting conversation, interaction, and ideas that have come from that, and looking forward to the report that staff will bring back to committee and council. So does anybody else have any comments that they wish to share? The warden, please.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, I'd like to just echo the, I think what's important if you want to gain credibility, and we want to do that, gain more credibility, is you have to be able to listen. And I think, we reassured the attendees that we were willing to listen and nothing was off the table. And so there were a lot of good conversations in the meeting itself, but more interestingly enough, that triggered some very intense, and I don't mean that negatively, but intense private conversations, which were important as well. And I know most of us collected a series of business cards, and we opened another channel with CMHC after my meeting at lunch with the representative of Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So I think it was very beneficial for everybody, and I saw a lot of people exchanging emails and phone numbers. So I think that was, if anything, that was probably the primary thing, was to start the dialogue, which I think we have. The other thing I'd like to note is, whenever you hold a meeting, a summit, or an information session, it has to look professional, because I think that inspires confidence as well. And so our organizing team took a concept and organized it very well. It was very well run, a good selection of guest speakers with timely and necessary topics. The introduction of the app allowed people to contribute right away, and I think those findings will be useful for us in the future as well. So it was seamless. It was on time. The graphics came out on time. There was no pauses. Everybody got processed in the morning coming in very quickly. The meals were great. So all of those things build momentum for the day. There's nothing more frustrating than when you show up and you're 45 minutes late or 25 minutes late because they only had 3 people at the front door when they should have had 7. And so I think being able to greet, and I think between Mr. Kelly, Mr. Davis, Mr. Howarth, and Ms. Marquardt, they knew everybody. And if they didn't, Chief Nolan knew them. So I think that that was we were able to generate a smaller feel to it, and that inspires confidence. So it was a very well done. It was a very well done event, and I think one that set another template for us as we move forward. And I hope that we use this template on any number of topics. Maybe there's a need for a couple a year on different things. Housing is one for sure, and we should probably do a follow-up at some point. But then also on, because housing is not going to go away, but at some point there might be something on health, and at some point there might be something on just living, the Renfrew County experience, to expose more people to who we are and what we do. But let's not be too ambitious, Peter. I think this was great, and thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Again, I've offered my personal congratulations and thanks to all involved. Although those mentioned, because Jason was full of names. Lacey, of course, has hours of video that we're dissecting at the moment that I'm anxious to see, and Angie Schultz, of course, we're mapping to. But of course, our former CAO, Paul Morrow, had a big hand in this, and we'll be debriefing this Thursday, I think, with the team. obliging the warden on the next one. So we'll know more after we debrief, I think on Thursday, and we'll bring a report forward on perhaps either this fall or next spring on the next phase of this as we roll it out. So again, congratulations to all involved.
Thank you very much. So I'll turn back to Mr. Davis to continue with his report.
The cautionary note of missing people. Sorry, Mr. Morrow, if you're watching right now. Item number 3 is a letter of thanks to McRae Lumber and Company. So it attaches Appendix 2, a letter of congratulations from the Warden Emo to Jamie McRae on his appointment to the chair of the Ontario Forest Industry Association, and a follow-up email back to the Warden. So again, how we support the industry through Lacey Rose, the Warden. We've been consistent with our approach with the lumber or the forest industry within Renfrew County and beyond. We support them full-heartedly. So I've been here for 22 years, and every year that I've been here is the strong support from this elected room to the forest industry. So again, thank you to the Warden, and congratulations to Mr. McRae. Item number 4 is the Cell Gap project update. This is just the monthly update about the EORN update. I'll say things are moving. I don't see a lot of numbers fast, but they're moving forward as we speak to have the completion of the cell tower installations in Eastern Ontario. And Chair, if I could, and look at Taylor Hanrath for items 5 and 6 dealing with the trails.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And Mr. Hanrath, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. Item number 5 is the bylaw governing County of Renfrew-owned recreational trails. The County of Renfrew has 2 designated recreational trails, the Algonquin Trail and the KMP Recreational Trail, and each trail is governed by a separate bylaw setting the rules for use of the trails. For consistency across the county's trails, including any future trails, it would be best to have a single bylaw capable of governing all of the county's recreational trails. This would also give the opportunity to separate the governance of the KMP Recreational Trail from the county forests and apply more applicable fines for offenses on that trail. A new draft bylaw to regulate and govern the use of lands identified as County of Renfrew recreational trails as linear parks is attached as Appendix 4 for consideration and input. It is requested that any input on the draft bylaw be provided no later than April 30th, 2024 to myself. As a new bylaw would have an impact on all trail users across the county. To provide an opportunity to address any public concerns, a public engagement was enacted through Zen City to gain input on how the county may improve management, maintenance, design, and/or construction practices for our recreational trails. This engagement ended on February 29th, 2024, and a report summarizing the input from the public, as well as for reference when considering the new draft bylaw, is included as Appendix 5. A notable change in the new draft bylaw from the current bylaw governing the Algonquin Trail that has had a great deal of discussion in the past and through recent public engagement is permitting dirt bikes and motorcycles on the trail. Dirt bikes and motorcycles would require insurance, license, and an Ontario Federation of All-Terrain Vehicle OFATV trail permit. And I'll pause there, Chair, to see if there's any questions.
Actually, maybe I'll just ask you to read the recommendation on the bylaw, and then we'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee, the recommendation on item number 6, which is the bylaw, item number 6 is the bylaw enforcement. This item is just the draft bylaw for input.
My apologies. Yes, I thought that this was still the bylaw for the trails. So I'll open it up for questions on the changes to the bylaw for the trails. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Not so much a question, but just I'm very happy to see that motorcycles are included. We get a lot of travel and tourism on, they're called dual sport bikes or adventure bikes that are on and off road. So they'll travel up the highways and then get onto the KMP. So I'm very happy to see that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor from Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. It was interesting to look through all of the comments and noticing that there were a lot of questions and demands for dirt bikes and motorcycles. And I know I spend a lot of time on the trails, and even in the areas where they're not supposed to be, there are quite a few already. So it is good that if we're going to allow them on, to get this into a bylaw to make it legal for all of these folks who want to use the trail. Now, having said that, as an often user of the trails, it would be the dirt bikes that I would say ignore the rules more than any others. The ATVs are very respectful, side-by-sides. When approaching somebody who's on a bicycle or walking, they always slow down. And I find, just based on my experience, that it is the dirt bikes that are traveling at high rates of speeds and are less careful around walkers and bikers, so it's good to see that we're proposing to have a little more Protect 5 patrolling the trails, and perhaps looking at the speeding and other enforcement aspects on the trail as well. So the question I do have is, when it says insurance, licensing, and a permit, when you say licensing, would that mean these dirt bikes have to have an actual Ontario license plate?
Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from the town of Petawawa. So it'd be a similar fashion, but either the green trail license plates, or if they're riding a motorcycle, one that is licensed for the road, an Ontario license plate.
Councillor from Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. It's to do with the dirt bikes. With motorcycles and cars, there's always a noise restriction. They've got mufflers. When you trail bikes go by, you can hear them for miles because if there's no exhaust system. Is there going to be a mechanical restriction on noise? Or they have to pass a safety test? Motorcycles do, cars do. I don't know about trail bikes.
Once again, Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from the town of Arnprior. So in a similar fashion to the way that ATVs are currently regulated, there'd be a noise aspect to it. So any customization to the exhaust system to make the machine louder is prohibited, and that would be enforced as part of the bylaw restrictions as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments, questions? Thank you, Taylor. And as the councillor from Petawawa stated, and also just from the staff reports, if we choose not to allow the dirt bikes, the history has indicated that they're already there and probably will continue even if you're attempting to enforce. So I think it is a move that we're going in the right direction, and with the enforcement, hopefully that we can keep it a respectful usage for everybody on that trail. And I'll go back to you now, Taylor, for our bylaws.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. Item number 6 is bylaw enforcement on Algonquin Trail. And the recommendation is that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to authorize Protect 5 of Pembroke, Ontario to act as a bylaw enforcement officer on County of Renfrew owned recreational trails on behalf of the County of Renfrew.
Thank you, Taylor. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by councillor from Town of Arnprior and seconded by councillor from Township of McNabb-Braeside. Oh, sorry. Go ahead with the background, please, Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. So as has been identified thus far, there have been a number of challenges with enforcement of the bylaw on the county's trail, especially on Algonquin Trail. So in the past, we've used the OPP and had paid duty officers come out to facilitate enforcement. Unfortunately, that comes at quite a cost and is very difficult to coordinate to have them come out to site. To give an example, this year we've been trying since January to schedule them out with either skidoos and now ATVs to enforce on the trail, and it's only within the next couple of weeks that they were able to accommodate that. So part of the reason we reached out to get private bylaw enforcement was to have a greater presence on the trail, and those specifically on the Algonquin Trail for the time being until the governing bylaw applies to all of our recreational trails, at which point it would be KNP as well. But this allows us to have them on the trail almost weekly until the end of the year, and we would be able to plan appropriately for future years as well.
Thank you, Taylor. Questions or comments? Councillor from Town of Petawawa and then Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, Chair, through you. And Taylor, yeah, I think this is a great idea. It is a long piece of property and very difficult to enforce rules on, especially with the OPP who are tasked with, keeping the peace in other areas in the county aside from the trail. So I think it's a great idea to have a specific targeted patrol officer on the trail. My question is, in terms of enforcement, what are they able to enforce and ticket? Is it everything, or are they just certain things they can enforce?
Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from the town of Petawawa. So they're able to enforce everything on our trails bylaw, with the one issue would be that they would require radar guns if they were to enforce the speed limits, but they would still be able to provide warnings in the case that they didn't have radar guns with them at the time. But every other rule in our bylaw governing our Algonquin Trail, they'd be able to enforce the rules on.
And Councillor from Greater Madawaska, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just noted in the proposals, Protect 5 from Pembroke said that they could do approximately 27 patrols completed before the end of 2024. James McBain Municipal Law Enforcement Services, it doesn't say how many patrols they could do. It does mention further down that there's 15 patrols that could be done by pay duty, but it doesn't mention what the other by law enforcement company could do. I'm just wondering whether we don't know that, or was it just not an oversight?
Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from Greater Madawaska. I apologize for the miscommunication. The number of patrols is based on the funding that we have allocated for enforcement and the cost per patrol. So it's not, they're available as and when needed. The number of patrols is just based on, we have so much left for patrols this year, and it costs approximately X amount for each proposal.
And Councillor from Laurentian Valley, please.
Just following up on the radar that Protect 5 will not have. Are they an expensive item? Can they be purchased? From my observations, speed has been one of the largest issues going, and some good speeding tickets would probably work well in spreading the word to other operators on the trail as well. So I don't know whether you've investigated that or not, but I'd like to suggest that perhaps we do look at that.
Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from Laurentian Valley. So both Protect 5 and McBain Municipal Law Enforcement Services identified that they could enforce the speed bylaw, but would require us to provide them with a radar gun. We haven't looked into the pricing for that yet, but we will review and present it at a later date.
Thank you. Councillor from Town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just a question on the 27 patrols, and it says a day patrol. Can you just give me an example of what a day patrol is and how much territory they could cover in one of these days?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from the town of Petawawa. So it'd be an 8-hour patrol, and they're flexible on their timing. They've said that they could patrol from noon to 8 or earlier if need be. It would all depend on what we're looking for schedule-wise, but we're hoping to fluctuate so that people don't necessarily or aren't able to anticipate when and where they would be on their patrol days. But they're able to stretch from Petawawa all the way to Renfrew in a day, depending on how many people that they're stopped and talking with.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up question on that. And I noticed in past years we've had some indicators on the trails, just, I guess, to count the amount of traffic at certain areas. Are we at the point where we have enough statistics to know where the high traffic areas are on our stretch of Algonquin Trail and know where to concentrate these patrols?
Yes, go ahead, Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from the town of Petawawa. Unfortunately, we've only done those counts in 2 locations, so the data is only in those 2 locations, though we do plan on targeting the urban areas the most, because that's where we're going to get the most concerns and the most public input on them.
Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to clarify, the 8 hours of patrol, does that also include their travel time? So if they're going from Pembroke to the KMP in Calabogie, is that travel time included within their 8-hour patrol, or is it 8-hour patrol plus travel?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from Greater Madawaska. So that's, their travel time would be on top of that. They've told us that they could do a 10-hour day, so we assumed if they were traveling an hour, they'd be able to do about an 8-hour patrol.
Councillor from Laurentian Valley, and then Town of Arnprior.
Following up on the day patrol, the trail closes at 11 o'clock. Will there be any patrols checking? There have been complaints of abusers on the trail after 11 o'clock in the evening. Will there be some checking on that as well?
Go ahead, Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from the Township of Laurentian Valley. We'll explore that. Our plan is to target day patrols for the most part, at least in the beginning, and then expand into catching the people that are going outside of the operating hours.
Councillor from Town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for not asking this question at the Algonquin Trails. When you say it's an 8-hour patrol, does that include the time for going back to the office, doing your administration, writing the ticket out, putting the reports in? Is that all part of the 8 hours, or is that a different time?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the councillor from Town of Arnprior. So we've assumed a 10-hour day, so they may say if they have a lot of tickets in a day and need to do additional logs, if they went 11 hours, they would just charge us for that extra hour.
Are there any other questions? Oh, the warden. Almost missed.
Thank you very much. When I look through the responses, I think as we move towards enforcement, signage will be an issue to make sure we have adequate signage, and I'm not suggesting we don't. And then further to the comments about noise, there's tree planting and additional tree planting for noise suppression are some of the suggestions. And then I look down and it says enforcement 6-year, 12-year, 18-year. So I can't recall could someone explain that to me, how that broke out?
Yes, Tyler, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the warden. So the way the Zen City engagement was set up was there was an opportunity for participants to allocate funding. So we gave options on whether they chose 5, or I think it was 6 per year enforcement trips, 12 per year, or 18 per year. That said, there was a lot of push for increased enforcement, even above the 18 per year. So we're pushing to do as much as we can in that regard.
Now I understand. I misunderstood the graph. And so I guess my final question would be, if I might, is will we be looking at structuring the speed limits on the trails similar to what we do with our roadways, where we have a bylaw that says 50 meters or 500 meters before such and such an intersection, then it drops from 40 kilometers to 20 kilometers. Are we looking at that detailed an approach? Because I think that might also help with some of the dust suppression and noise issues and things like that.
Taylor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the warden. So currently, urban areas are posted at 20 kilometers an hour and rural areas are 50 kilometers an hour. There's no distinction that there has to be a drop between the two speed limit changes. That said, it does, like you said, assist us with dust suppression and things like that. And part of this enforcement bylaw would be increasing enforcement to make sure that people are following that drop in speed limit through the urban sections.
Good. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Any other questions? I just want to say thank you to Taylor, because you did a great job of explaining and clarifying all of those questions. At this point then, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. And before we move forward, I'll go back to information item number 3 of Mr. Davis's report, which was the letter of thanks for the McRae Lumber Company. Any comments or, yes, the warden, please.
Thank you. As you know, we try to recognize when our members of our community have success. And I've had the opportunity to sit beside Mr. McRae a number of times. I've gone to the OFIA annual dinner, I believe, twice now. Missed it this year and last year because of something else, and I'll try it again in the future. But the family is very well respected within the industry here in our county, but across Ontario as well. And always enjoy sitting with them at other times when you meet them in the community as well. So very insightful, and always take a community view. It's not a me first approach. So that always helps me engage with them. So I'm very glad to see this, and thank you to staff for wordsmithing my feeble attempts to offer a letter. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions on item number 3? Seeing none. Item number 4, the Cell Gap project update. The warden, once again.
My apologies. So my understanding is that some of the issues for ERN has been that some time ago the province of Ontario made a decision that ERN would act on their behalf with regards to First Nations consultation. So that slowed the process somewhat because that was an add-on, sorry, I shouldn't say an add-on, unexplained obligation, and that slowed the process. I believe all of the consultations are complete now and have been very successful. And then further, if you'll recall, there was an issue with some of the utility companies, a large conglomerate across Ontario, that have been unable to provide power to some of the sites. So some of the towers are erected, and you drive by them and expecting to have bars, and they're not, and that's because there is not any equipment installed on them because there's no power that's been able to be ran to the towers to light them up. So I believe that large rural provider of electricity is working to change that. Rumor has it that, and I only say rumor because I've heard it from 4 people, but I haven't seen an official report from that large conglomerate. They are supposed to be upstaffing to be able to meet this demand and some of the demanding the building industry in rural Ontario. So we'll keep you posted, but that's all that I know right now. So it's not a matter of ERN not doing their work. It's the system not being able to recognize the needs of the project and respond in time.
Thank you for that additional information. So at this point, I will turn it over to Ms. Markwood for the Economic Development Division report.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair, through you to committee. As I just get my screen big, and I just want to say I am feeling the pressure of events, so yes, thank you. Item number 1 on the Economic Development Report is just information about a new leadership team at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. So they do have a new executive team in place, Jack Craig Jr., who replaces Joe McBrearty as President and CEO, Jan Preston, who replaces Peter Stalker as Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Stephen Bushby, who replaces Jeff Griffin as Vice President of Science and Technology, and Janet Tosh, who replaces Todd Cook as Vice President and Human Resources. Item number 2 is a vendor market forum that is being organized by our team and being held on April 23rd, and that's in partnership with the Ontario Ministry of Rural Affairs and Agriculture and the Renfrew County District Health Unit. It's a full-day event, and it's about selling food regulations, food trends and opportunities, strategies for farmers markets, designing your booth at events and things like that. So lots of good training and information. And then there's also a second virtual webinar that's being held as a follow-up on April 29th. And so just as a reminder, that event is being held on April 23rd, and it's being held here at the County of Renfrew. And the registration deadline is April 15th. And it's $30 and includes lunch, and attendees have the option to attend either the full day or the half day. Item number 3 is a survey that has been put out by the Township of Mississippi Mills regarding livestock producers. And they're exploring the feasibility of an abattoir or meat processing facility in their area. And so they have sent out a survey reaching wide to the agricultural community looking for feedback about that. As we know, there is no processing facility here in Renfrew County or in the near vicinity, and that causes some challenges for our agricultural producers here in terms of getting things to market and things like that. So this is a good opportunity for our local agricultural community to provide feedback on. We are aware of a agricultural business in Renfrew County who is also looking at the potential of this. They're in the very beginning of just looking at feasibility. So there is some movement, but I think this survey is a really good first step, just in terms of collecting that much needed information. And I will stop there before going on to the resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Margaret. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the new leadership team at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. I guess the only, and I'm not sure if you can answer, but the only question I would have is with changing that whole team, is there a transition? Did they have a transition plan? Is there a good follow-up with history and information, et cetera, so that the work that was started can continue?
Through you, I believe, and I would assume that they would. The changing of the guard happens every few years, and so this is a standard practice for them. So I would just assume that they would have a good transition team in place and a good plan in place.
Thank you. That was my hope as well. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then item number 2 is the vendor market forum. Questions or comments? Seeing none, item number 3 is the Township of Mississippi Mills Livestock Producers Survey. Warden.
Really glad to see this. Been hearing this comment for probably 20 years. Or at least 15. And so I'm glad to see that I believe there was an attempt probably 10 years ago, so I'm glad to see this happening. And so with that, when the survey is completed, will we get an opportunity as local municipalities to endorse it as it goes forward? Is that their long-range plan?
Ms. Marquardt?
Thank you. And through you, we have requested a copy of the survey results when they do come in. So as long as they are available publicly, we'll be sharing those with committee.
Yeah, Councillor from McNabb Braeside, please.
Thank you, Chair. And just to echo the warden's comments, it's a common thing heard for meat producers that the lack of abattoirs is a real issue in the viability of their business. So finally, some good news, and we will look forward to the results of the survey. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I would just add that, I mean, there is one arbitrator in our municipality, and the challenge is he is so busy. I think now if you want to book an animal in, it's at least 10 to 12 months that you're looking at to get that animal in. And so some of the farmers are having to go to Quebec to get that processing done. So it certainly would be nice to see something closer to our communities where we could have that service. Any other comments? Seeing none, then I'll go back to Ms. Marquardt for resolutions, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 4 is the new terms of reference for the Renfrew County Agricultural Economic Development Committee. And I'll read the recommendation, that the Development and Property Committee recommends to County Council that the new terms of reference for the Renfrew County Agricultural Economic Development Committee be approved as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Marquardt. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by the warden, seconded by Councillor from Town of Petawawa. And back to you, Ms. Marquardt, for background.
Thank you. So this goes back dating to about 2002, when the Renfrew County Agricultural Leadership Advisory Committee was established by County Council in response to help fill gaps following provincial cutbacks to the local agricultural support. At that time, the goal of the committee was to enhance economic potential for the agricultural sector, increase public awareness of agricultural issues, and publish the Renfrew County Farm News, which is published quarterly. Appointed to the committee were a representative from County Council and a staff member from the Economic Development Division, and a budget was allocated. The committee included, at that time, representatives from various agricultural organizations, as well as OMAFRA. In 2003, the Renfrew County Agricultural Economic Development Committee, and responsible for the coordination of that budget of funds of $22,000, was established with the purpose of promoting and coordinating business development of agricultural and agri-food industries in the County of Renfrew. Same representatives were appointed to this leadership committee, but no budget was allocated. The committee did include representatives from various ag organizations, municipal economic development staff, and supporting stakeholders. As the years progressed, duplication of efforts and membership composition between the two committees began to overlap. And in 2008, County Council appointed a representative to the Agricultural Economic Development Committee only, and the budget was allocated to this committee. And an economic development staff member remained on each committee. On April 22nd, 2022, the Development and Property Committee was advised that discussions had started to amalgamate the two committees to reduce redundancies, combine efforts, and streamline the budget allocation process. Fast forward to March 4th of this year, the two committees met and approved the new draft terms of reference, which are attached here for approval. The committee is now referred to as the Renfrew County Agricultural Economic Development Committee and recognized as such by County Council. At the same meeting on March 4th, Keenan Stone, who's the co-owner of Valley Bio from the Township of Whitewater, was named as chair of this committee for 2024. And the committee is also scheduled to be a delegation at County Council on June 26th, 2024.
Thank you for that, Ms. Marquardt. Comments or questions? Warden, please.
Thank you very much. Glad to see this, and I'm glad it came about naturally. There was some conversations in the past that I've sat in on hoping that it would occur naturally rather than trying to organize it on their behalf. So I'm glad to see this because I never could understand the difference. I think I understood that one of the committees was stood up to recognize the impact of SARS and organize the county's response to that. And the other one was set up for something else. And so I could never put that together. So just a couple of really quick questions. On item number 3, committee members voting. I get the impression there are 10 members down on the first bullet points that can vote, but 6 or 8 members, the next one, item VII or Roman numeral 7, no less than 6 and not more than 8 members. So are they also voting members as well? So in theory, you could have either 16 or 18, or are there 10 voting members?
Ms. Marquardt.
Yes, that's a very good question. And I'm just reading back now through through the thing. They would have a vote from, if my recollection from the meeting is that they would have a vote, yes. I may have to come back to you on that one. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies.
And then just for further clarification, I see item number 5.2 where it says 2/3 are in favor of holding a meeting or not. So is it a simple majority of this 10 or the 16 or 18? And would we consider changing the 6 or 8 to 5 or 7? Because when you have potentially 18 members or 16 members or 10 members, there's an even vote So then you would have to talk about a tie vote being a lost vote. So those are the kinds of, so I'm just trying to make it a little simpler because we don't want a 55-page document or, or something like our procedural bylaw, no disrespect. And then the other piece is the terms of reference. Should we also mention that they adhere to the County Renfrew procedural bylaw, and then also to all of our purchasing and procurement bylaws as well, because I think that's something that we expect, and I think it's in our procedural bylaw, so maybe it should be included in the terms of reference of arm's length committees. Thank you. Not to be critical, but I do this periodically with everybody's stuff.
Mr. Davis, did you want to comment?
I'll make one comment just to see if there's a need for clarity within the terms of reference, and if there is, we can maybe table this and bring it back at a later date, but I'll defer to Melissa for those two questions to see if we have time to make those recommendations and changes before County Council.
Ms.
Thanks.
Marquardt?
Thank you. Through. Yes, great comments. Thank you, Warden. We'll take these back and clear this up, and we'll see if we can get this clarified before County Council meeting at the end of the month.
Okay. Okay, so it's been suggested to me that we would need to amend the motion, and so I would suggest the amendment would be that as I look for the motion, I'm sorry, be approved with the recommendations considered. Because I might be wrong too. So,
Mr. Davis?
Chair, if I may, I think just for the sake of clarity, I'd wish if maybe table this motion for now, just so we get our head around and make sure we have all the ducks in a row to make sure the terms of reference are in place to make for the answer to your questions first and foremost. And if any changes need to be made, we'll bring this back to the next committee.
Then I would make the motion to table if that's okay.
Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor from Greater Madawaska. Discussion? All in favor? That's carried.
And
that motion.
Chair, if I might add, part of normally I would have, had I been a little more prepared, would have sent these points earlier, to be honest with you. And then secondly, I might have then also brought them up simply so that the other members would correct me if I'm wrong in the future, or remind us, to include them in arm's length things. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So that brings us to the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association report, and we'll go back to Ms. Markwood.
Thank you. And on page 102, I believe, of your report is the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association report. So the first up is our tourism conference and annual general meeting taking place next Tuesday in Renfrew. The theme is Tourism Tomorrow, Cultivating Growth and Navigating Change, and it's also taking place during National Tourism Week. We have been able to secure a couple of sponsors for the event, which is great. The Renfrew County Community Futures Development Corporation, as well as Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization. And the full day event includes a keynote address by Sarah Norton of Reply All, who's going to speak about marketing automation and revenue generation. We have a Welcome to the Land and Flash History lesson with Christine Lukasavich of Wasea Consulting, and panel discussions about community partnerships, travel trade, and succession planning. And we wrap up the end of the day with presentation of the Ottawa Valley Tourism Awards. During the AGM, we'll be electing the board of directors, approving financials, approving changes to the bylaws for the year. It will be a great day. We've got some local food, and it's a full day event at the MyFM Centre, and so we're hoping that many will attend, as well as members of committee and council. And I do have a note in here that registration closes today, but we will be extending that to allow for a few more people to come in. Item number 2 is the Ottawa Valley Tourism Awards. So again, the winners will be presented at the AGM next Tuesday. But we have 6 award categories, and we received a total of 17. We have 17 applications in those 6 categories. So under tourism marketing, there's Sour Joe's Sourdough Bakery from Whitewater Region, the Somewhere in Calabogie from Greater Madawaska, and the Ontario's Highlands Tourism Organization, also from Whitewater Region. Under the Sustainability Champion, we've got Anupaya Cabin Co. from Deep River, Eva's Cafe from Killaloe Haggerty Richards, and the Whitewater Brewing Company from Whitewater Region. Under New Tourism Product, there's Ottawa Valley Farm to Fork from Bonnechere Valley, Rio Tap and Grill's Summer Music Series, also from Bonnechere Valley. And our Tourism Champion this year is Ron Moss from the Ottawa Valley Cycling and Active Transportation Alliance, who is no stranger here in Chambers. Event of the year, we've got Hell or High Water Whitewater Race from Petawawa, the Beachburg Off-Road Cycling Association's Spring Chicken Races from Whitewater Region, the Renfrew Craft Beer and Food Truck Festival, the Pembroke Regional Silver Stick Hockey Tournament, and Whitewater Brewing Company's Riverside Brew Pub opening event. And lastly, under Business Organization of the Year, we have Laurentian Valley's 50 Plus Fit and Feisty, and the Somewhere in Calabogie in Greater Madawaska. And thank you to the warden, as well as a couple of OVTA directors who were the judges for these fine awards for this year. Number 3 on the report is the 2023 Ontario Health Check Wrap-Up Report for the full year. So Destination Ontario started providing these reports quarterly over the past couple of years, and these are to track recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, predominantly in the accommodation occupancy rates. And so there's a number of things highlighted in the report this year. The key takeaway is that tourism continues to be on an overall upward recovery trend. And some performance indicators have surpassed 2022 levels in all regions, but they're still below pre-pandemic levels from 2019. Item number 4 on the report is a campaign that we recently completed with Quebec Le Mag, and that's to promote La Route Champlain here throughout Pembroke and the Ottawa Valley. La Route Champlain highlights Samuel de Champlain's discovery of Canada and what is now known as the Ottawa Valley, and we use that to promote specifically to European and French-speaking visitors. And so our campaign with Quebec Le Mag saw information being sent out in France and other European French-speaking countries. And number 5 on the report, and most recently on April 2nd, the City of Pembroke voted in favor to implement a 4% municipal accommodation tax that will be applied to all roofed and non-roofed transient accommodations for 30 days or less, with a proposed implementation date of January 1st, 2025. And the City of Pembroke has also identified the OVTA as the eligible tourism entity to receive 50% of those funds. Just for committee's information, the municipal accommodation tax was introduced in 2017 and is a tax, it was introduced by the Ontario government, and it's a tax that it's applied to transient accommodations for stays of 30 days or less. At this time, the rate in most communities right now is 4%. When it was implemented a number of years ago at the start, it was 3%, but we've seen communities increase over that, with notably Toronto, Mississauga, and Marathon now charging 6%, Ottawa, Oshawa, and Kingston charging 5%. As part of that legislation, the idea around those funds, the idea is to be invested locally back into the community for tourism investment. However, with the split of those funds, the portion that the municipality retains can be invested however the municipality so chooses. The portion that goes to the eligible tourism entity must be dedicated towards tourism promotion and development for that community. So this is very early in the stages, and we'll be working with city staff to develop those agreements and program going forward. And that completes my OVTA report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marquardt, and we'll go back to information item number 1, the Ottawa Valley Tourism Conference and Annual General Meeting. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I would just encourage that we could have representation from all our municipalities at this. We are, our county is very tourism oriented, and I think it would be a nice show of support to have representation from your municipalities at the conference. If you look at part 2 is the tourism awards, you'll see it's greatly spread out from Deep River to Bonnechere Valley to Laurentian Valley to Whitewater, Petawawa, all have people that are in that category that have applied. So I'm just encouraging council members or municipal councillors as well to attend and support your tourism.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? The warden, please.
Thank you. It looks like a really exciting day. And in the past, as I expect next week, always an opportunity to be informed. I don't know about you, but I'm going to confess I don't know much about social media and the application to business, which I think is also appropriate to the application to what we do, and different ways of engaging, and then also information. I know last year the information was about recovering from COVID, but also the challenges of recruiting labor, the challenges of keeping labor. There was a real focus on, there has been a change in their industry, and they had similar concerns toward every other business, I think, across every sector, including education and municipalities and hospitals we're facing. But then also because their industry traditionally pays slightly less than other sectors, there was the worry about driving their workforce further from their employment centers, and that also led to retention issues. So there's always a lot of great information from the presenters, and it usually is a very good indicator of where the rest of our community is. The issues are always the same, possibly a little more focused because of the urgent need of tourism staff from a static point of view, with the exception of the winter activities. So, as the member from Greater Madawaska said, we'd certainly hope everybody could take the opportunity to show up. The lunches are always great too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It is actually a great experience, great day from the ones I have attended in the past. I thoroughly have enjoyed it. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'll go to item number 2, which is the Ottawa Valley Tourism Awards. Warden, please.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to be there. Learned a lot. Don't ask me who won, because honestly, I can't remember. I think we did this 10 days ago, and I deliberately tore up my score sheet, so it'll be interesting. I think I remember, but I think you'll be very impressed with the winners.
Thank you for that. Item number 3 is the Ontario Health Check wrap-up report. Lots of data in that report. Any questions or comments? I see none, so we'll move to item number 4, which is promotion of La Route Champlain. Another good news story for Renfrew County. And item number 5 is the approval of the implementation of a municipal accommodation tax. Councillor from Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, just for everybody's information, this came up at Petawawa Town Council last night. There was a presentation made about a MAT tax being implemented in Petawawa as well. It was met favorably because it was presented by our 5 main hoteliers and as well as staff. So the hotels in Petawawa are on board. We're waiting, it'll be a couple of months before they bring forward their final recommendation in more detailed form, but it does look favorable. And it was at 3% instead of 4%. And again, OVTA was put forward as the logical choice for administering the funding.
Good news. Nice to see that it's gaining a little bit of traction in Renfrew County. Warden.
I'm glad to hear this, to be quite frank with you. My worry now is that how can we be certain, or how do we protect those funds as they come in so that they're maintained for marketing, but broader marketing for those respective communities, and not used as an excuse for those of us sitting here 4 years from now to carve X number of dollars out of OVTA's budget because there's this amount of money coming in. Because I think it's a good faith understanding probably within these chambers, but I cannot suggest to you that by 2028 that good faith understanding will be in place. So is it possible for the CAO to sit down with the CAO from the town of Petawawa and the city, that maybe they could do a bylaw and we could do a corresponding bylaw so that it becomes a little more challenging for people to unwrap it? And I'm only trying to think ahead to make sure that the funds aren't misused. Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Chair. And so you raise a very excellent point, and Melissa will add to my comments. And it's my understanding, once we have the agreement in place between the city, whether it's the city of Pembroke or the town of Petawawa, we'll modify an agreement or have an agreement in place to dedicate the funds, whatever is collected from those areas, go right back to those areas as part of an agreement. And then I'll pass it off to Melissa if I could, Chair.
Ms. Markwood?
Yes, thank you. So for the municipal accommodation tax funds, the OVTA would be entering into agreement with those communities to develop a plan that would be for specific use of those funds dedicated to those communities. So that would be part of our process. And I also just want to note that as per the MAT legislation, it does say that municipal accommodation funds cannot replace existing tourism support funds. So municipal accommodation tax funds would be in addition to those tourism funds that are already being invested in a tourism community or through an eligible tourism entity or destination marketing organization.
Good, thank you.
Councillor from town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. And if I could just add, as part of the presentation last night, it was stated that there would be an MOU between the municipality and the county to ensure that everything was above board and everybody understood the process.
Mr. Davis?
Just one more comment. For those that were around, I'm going to say pre-COVID, when the MAT tax, when the MAT was introduced and discussed here, it's a total 360-degree change of what people wanted out of this MAT. Previously, there was no discussion to have a MAT within Renfrew County, and it's nice to see it's coming back to full circle to have this in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? I see none, so I will go back to Ms. Markwood for the Enterprise Renfrew County report.
Thank you, Chair. So item number 1, which is found on page 105 of Enterprise Renfrew County's report, is just the year-end report on business consultations and services. So in the first column is the year-to-date, and in the second column, you will see the annual target. And I'm not going to go through each number line by line, but every single target has been exceeded on that through the excellent efforts and hardworking small business advisor and program officer Heather and Lindsay with the ERC team. They have continuously knocked things out of the park in terms of exceeding targets and meeting the needs of the local business community and future entrepreneurs. And so this report does a great job of detailing all of those numbers. And as well, there is a breakdown of the consultations and business inquiries by municipality, including the City of Pembroke and Algonquin-Pikwakanagan First Nation for everyone's information. Item number 2 is sponsorship opportunities. So if you recall, a couple months ago, ERC developed a sponsorship program just to be able to generate a few extra revenue sources to be able to deliver more workshops and events throughout the community. So they've established a number of partnerships with some local municipalities already, including the town of Petawawa, Laurentian Valley, Madawaska Valley, Whitewater Region, Greater Madawaska, and the City of Pembroke. And there will be additional programming delivered for those communities and the entrepreneurs and businesses in those regions. Number 3 is a good news story. So we were apprised a little over a week ago that during the Ontario budget announcement that the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade was going to be increasing the budget by $6.25 million for the delivery of the Summer Company and Starter Company programs by the Small Business Enterprise Center. At the time of writing the report, we didn't know the amount, but I can report today that Enterprise Renfrew County will be receiving an additional $50,000 to be added to the Summer Company and Starter Company Plus programs for this year, and this is applied for this summer programming. So we're still waiting on the transfer payment agreement, so those will be coming forth to committee probably next month for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Margaret. Going back to information item number 1, the core business consultations and services year-end report. Questions or comments? Warden, please.
Just a request. I have a meeting scheduled with MPP Akabuski, I believe next Friday. And I'm wondering if I could have just a small, short report on this, because I think it's important that he hears this. And then secondly, I would suggest that it would be appropriate for a letter from my office, the Warden's office, to the Minister, just outlining the highlights of this as well, given that increasingly funding is driven by results, but I think the results have to be publicized. As a smaller organization, we're often up against larger ones and in more urbanized settings, and I think it's important for us to continually talk about what we do well.
Thank you. We certainly agree. Any other comments or questions? So item number 2 is the sponsorship opportunities. Comments, questions? Seeing none. Item number 3 is the increased program funding to small business enterprise centers. Another good news story. So that brings us to the forestry report, but I think we'll take a 10-minute pause since we've been in here since 9:30. So we'll be back at let's aim for 11:22. Welcome back, everybody. At this time, we will move to the forestry report, and Ms. Rose will take that away.
Thank you, Chair. On page 108 of your report, you'll find the forestry report for this month. First up, for the information items, some updates on outreach activities. So the first one is just a follow-up on last month. I was honored to attend a meeting with Minister Smith and Associate Minister Williams in Queen's Park, a roundtable for the topic is women in forestry. Why aren't there more? And how do we get more women interested in forestry? It was really unique to be in a room with about 20 other women from across Ontario in the sector and one man. Usually it's the other way around. So that was a great discussion that was had there. And there's a letter attached to the report associated with that meeting. Item B is just a follow-up additional item that occurred based on last month's committee resolution to advocate for and be involved in helping to facilitate more biomass interest and businesses potentially looking at our area. So I was contacted by a researcher from the IB Business School who was studying the frictions within the bioeconomy, and they're also evaluating the role that standards could play. The messages that I was relaying back is that we have a large sustainable supply of woody biomass available in our area, and that additional standards placed on forest management would be unnecessary and restrictive to providing biomass, given the amount of restrictions and standards we already have on sustainable forest management in this area. Item C, the first of 3 potentially large tours for local schools. Grade 9 students were what is targeting with this funding from Forests Ontario. So this time around, they were from Fellows High School, 46, it was actually 50 in the end, grade 9 students from Fellows. And we went to the Petawawa Research Forest where they did a number of skills sessions, and then Shaw Lumber was gracious enough to host us at their pole yard. So I would say like the best story from this tour would be, at the end of the day, I asked if any of the students would now consider a career in the forest sector, and 4 of them raised their hands. So I think that's the best we can ask for. So definitely worthwhile to do these activities. Information item number 2 is a communications update. Just to follow up again on something we talked about last month, the Ontario Woodlot Association was asking for the warden's support to a submission that they were putting forward to the Ontario Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks on the topic of black ash as an endangered species and how this will affect private land, is currently affecting private land since the approval of the regulations. And that's included as an attachment in your report. Item 3 is just an update on activities in the Renfrew County Forest. Our operations are still ticking along. Bud Mills is complete. We're just waiting on information for the final invoice, but we expect that we will surpass the total bid price that was received there. Higher volume was harvested than was estimated, so that's good to see. Killaloo also complete. They're just waiting for half loads to be done to finish hauling. And Ruby, actually, they are still cutting there because it's really dry out in the forest, and there's some higher elevation areas that they're able to work in without doing any damage before the species at risk timing restriction kicks in at the end of this month. So we're well on track to meet our financial objectives for this year. Item B, just an update. I think I've started to talk about this more every month. We are seeing a drastic increase in the illegal activities in the Renfrew County Forest. 2 police reports in the last month. One was a fire that looks to have gotten out of control at Golden Lake Tract. It was not put out by the fire department. It was not reported to the fire department. And yeah, it was just our own staff observations, but now we have followed up with the local fire department and OPP, just asking them to keep an eye on this area because it looks like it might be an area that has repeated fires. Just this latest one got quite large. The second report was about the unauthorized cutting of trees at Brudenell Tract that we found out about from a neighbor, and that one was dealt with as well by the OPP. In addition, we did find some cremated human remains at another tract, and we're in the process of attempting to have those removed through some sleuthing to find the family of the deceased. Information item number 3C, just an update on the progress that we're making towards regenerating the Beachburg tract. So you remember that was harvested in the winter, I guess January 2023, we finished that, or February, early of last year, and then last fall we did mechanical site preparation. The next step is for us to evaluate how much poplar, red maple competing vegetation sprouts back this spring. Chances are, with my experience and the experience of others in the sector, that will be quite vigorous, and we will want to be doing a chemical site preparation in advance of planting those 45,000 trees in 2025 to give them a chance at survival. So we did a request for quotes, two were received, and we have awarded the work to Heritage Reforestation, Inc., less than our budgeted amount. So that is good to see. Obviously, we're going to be doing, anytime there's talk about chemical in the forest, you want to be doing a lot of public outreach and education. We have already talked about that at all the tours that we've done in the past, but we'll continue to do so and ramp up our social media outreach in advance of this work. And obviously, the area will be signed and closed by the contractor according to the requirements of the Pesticide Act and any other relevant regulations. Number 4 is a bylaw to prohibit certain activities on the County of Renfrew Forest. So this goes hand in hand with Mr. Handrath's presentation earlier. So our bylaw is from 2009 with the removal of trails from that bylaw in a future meeting. This was an opportunity for us to update our bylaw. Obviously, as I mentioned, we're seeing a lot more problematic activity in the forest. These present a significant cost to us as the county to deal especially with dumping invasive species associated with that, and also the potential cost of these fires as we are entering seasons such as this that are quite dry. So we updated the fine amounts and added a lot of activities that weren't in the 2009 bylaw that we have seen, and reviewed other bylaws from other counties to kind of see what they included in theirs for their forests. So that's included for information in your package, and also would ask that you would have a look at that and provide any comments before April 30th of this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. We will go back to item number 1, the outreach activities. Actually, we'll start at 1A. Comments or questions? Item 1B. One C. Item number 2, the word.
Yes, just with all of item number 1, A, B, and C, it's really good that Ms. Rose is on a one-person campaign for offering insight into what we're doing, and so that's great. Thank you very much for that. And again, I think it was quite appropriate that in March that Minister Smith would have held a forum highlighting the progress and the contribution of women in the sector. So I think it was the appropriate month, and I'm glad that Ms. Rose was included. I think it speaks highly of her abilities, but also the quiet ability of our organization to recognize talent regardless of sex, and so I'm glad to see that we're doing that, and would encourage her and Mr. Davis and everybody else across the organization to continue with these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments on item number 1? Item number 2 is the communications update. Item number 3 is the activities on Renfrew County Forest. Comments, questions? Work is progressing well. It was an easy winter, and I think the dry weather certainly helped. Item number 3B, the police reports. And item number 3C. And item number 4, the bylaw to prohibit activities. Councillor from Pryor.
Thank you, Chair. As part of our input, can we make amendments to the cost of the fines?
Ms. Rose?
Through you, Chair. So from what I understand, the cap without going through additional approval processes beyond what normally happens for a municipal bylaw, $500 would be the maximum fine usually in that kind of scenario. You can recommend changes to any of them for sure, but just keep that in mind.
A supplemental, Chair, it's just that this was done in 2009, and I see most of them are $125, which in reality today is a little bit more, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, you wanted to...
Thanks, Chair. Just and not overstep Lacey by any means. Just the whole idea of this bylaw change is to increase the fines. They are, I'll say, out of date and a little lower than anticipated. So when you see the next draft of the fine schedule, it'll be increased, probably doubled at the least. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll go to the Real Estate Division report. And is it Ms. Bennett or is it Mr. Howarth? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm ahead again.
Somebody,
it's Mr. Raditz.
A rose between two thorns? Just kidding. Thank you, Chair. Through you to the committee. The real estate report is found on page 125. And item number 1 is just the attached appendix, the monthly report, status update on the projects. Again, I would just like to mention the key project being the Eganville Paramedic Base. That is advancing well. We're approximately at about 80% complete. And again, as mentioned previously in previous reports, we anticipate the commissioning and operation of that building to take place probably late Q2, late June or early July. Information item number 2, again, is just an update on the new build at the Lee Street and Douglas. The overall project, we're approximately 80% complete there. The exterior work, we're at about 85% complete and about 90% complete on the interior work. So we're kind of in the final stages of that, and there'll be a big push in the next 5 to 6 weeks to have that completed, and the target date is May 10th. But saying that, there may be some exterior landscaping that may take place after May 10th, but the building or the structure itself will be completed by May 10th. Moving down to item number 3, again, that's just an update at the Renfrew County Place. We recently did a fit-up or renovation. Perhaps if you recall, last year the VTAC temporarily moved in on the 2nd floor. So they've been there the last 6 months, and during that time we did the renovation on the 1st floor, which was previously the Renfrew County District Health Unit. That consisted of a little over 1,700 square feet. And VTAC moved into that space on March 27th, and they seem to be pleased with the work that was completed. And I would just like to say that the majority of that work, probably about 75% of that work, was done and completed in-house. So I'd like to just mention that, Chair. And item number 4, staffing update. And I would just like to welcome Karen White, who has joined us. I'll introduce you to Karen White at the back. She has joined our team. She's been with us for a week. And we're pleased to have her aboard, and we look forward to working with Karen. And definitely we'll be keeping Karen busy. I think there's probably about 22 or 23 of us now on the team. So, yeah, she's going to be a big support to us, and we'd like to welcome you, Karen. And Chair, that completes the real estate report.
Thank you, Mr. Raditz, and my apologies for jumping over you a little bit quick. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the real estate 2024 capital and capital under threshold projects. The summary report, questions or comments? Seeing none, item number 2 is the update on the 1030 Lee Street new build progress report. Be great to see that one finished as well. Item number 3 is the Renfrew 450 O'Brien Road fit-ups. Again, I think a testament to the skill of some of our in-house staff for completing most of that work. And finally, item number 4 is the staffing update. And once again, welcome, Karen. You're part of a pretty ambitious team. Any other comments or questions? I see none. So now we will move to the Planning Service Division report. Mr. Howard.
Thank you very much, Chair. I believe the Planning Division report starts on page 127 of the committee package, but I'm going to start off by testing out our technology. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. So what hopefully you are seeing, there we go. So I'm going to demonstrate very quickly a couple of dashboards. We call them the dashboards that have been created by Angie Schultz, our GIS coordinator. And these were unveiled at the Housing Summit that was held on April the 4th. And in my opinion, I think it was the highlight of the whole thing. But obviously there was a lot of good conversations going on. But so these are 2 dashboards that we have created that demonstrate information that is out there just with regards to where are we building and where could we build. So the first one, you can see this is with regards to new housing dashboards, new housing built within the county. And so it shows like over the last 4 years, this information is taken from MPAC. We've built in the county of Renfrew approximately 2,100 units. And by utilizing this dashboard, we can select by municipality and we can go see exactly, where are we building, what type of units have we been building. So for example, if we were to select McNabb Braeside, for example, it would go in there. So in McNabb Braeside over the last 4 years, and we can select by year or date, or by unit type, there's been approximately 200 units built in McNabb Braeside. And in this, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving, I believe so. You can see that 99% of those have been, or 98% have been single detached and a couple of semi-detached. Whereas if you were to choose by Petawawa, for example, you would zoom to Petawawa, show exactly where those buildings are that have been built. It shows the mix of housing units, so 61% are single detached, 18 row, 4% semi, and the rest are apartment buildings, and then again shows you that location. So it is just a tool that municipalities or the county can use to say it may support different things like grant applications or other types of information that may be relevant to the municipality, but it essentially shows where are we building, where are the locations, and by unit type. So that's the first one, just with regards to housing itself. And the second one is very similar. I won't go into too much detail, but it goes into vacant land. So where are the vacant lands within the municipality, within the county of Renfrew, that we have that could be built on? I did want to point out, this does not filter out any lands that might have restrictions on it. So it doesn't go into the detail, like a property may have environmental protection zoning or maybe too close to a waste dump, for example, or it could be prime agricultural lands. So it doesn't go into that level of detail, like saying exactly what properties can be developed on, so there may be restrictions. But according to MPAC, right now in the county of Renfrew, we have approximately 12,300 vacant lands. We have under this middle section here, shows the amount of units that are being proposed in plans of subdivision right now. So you can see there's approximately 2,600 lots that have not yet been approved that are in plans of subdivision. And again, using the different select features, you can select by municipality, for example, the town of Arnprior, and you can show where it shows where those lands are. It also does include industrial or commercial land, so you could also search by that if somebody was interested. So for example, here is a new plan of subdivision known as, I just lost the name of it, not Huntergate, that's Renfrew, West, I lost the name of it. But for example, you can see right here it's showing gray. These are lots that have been created that are final approved, that are ready to be built on, but houses haven't been built on. And highlighted in green is the rest of the subdivision that has yet to be final approved. And it's Marshall's Bay. There you go, Marshall Bay Meadows. It popped up for me. It's a great tool, and it shows you how many more units are being available to be developed within that planned subdivision. So again, great tool. Provides information. It is a snapshot in time. It is not linked to live. So, if we find that this is useful, then it's something that we could look at maintaining in the future. But as of right now, it provides you that snapshot in time, and is a tool that either we can use it here at the County of Renfrew or available for local municipalities as well. So I'm going to stop sharing there. All right, technology worked. That's great. Item number 2, Chair, I'll just keep on going on. We've decided to host a GIS training day. So our office sent out through, again, Angie Schultz, our GIS coordinator, an invitation to all local staff for any municipality, and also available also for our own municipal staff here at the County of Renfrew, to provide a crash course on GIS. So a lot of municipalities, a lot of staff don't really realize how good this software is, or some of the availabilities of what this software can be doing for us. So the day is going to provide that introduction to GIS, a quick demonstration of what it can do, and then also a little GIS 101 of how to get started and how to use some of these tools and provide some of those topics. So that's going to be hosted here on April 25th. Again, we encourage any, you can share the invitation. It's going to be free. There's no charge for attending, and it will be essentially our in-house staff through Angie and our other GIS, Sam, who will be there to provide some support in that basic training. So we encourage everybody to come out. It should be a great day, and get that information. Item number 3 is an update. The Bennett Meadows subdivision within the Township of Whitewater region has been draft approved. So this will allow the future creation of 50 units, 6 semi-detached and 44 road dwellings. So that's exciting that this subdivision is progressing and moving to that next stage. Item 4 is an update with regards to the floodplain mapping. So we have completed the phase 1 of the floodplain mapping program. So this was in partnership with Natural Resources Canada and Arcan, and also the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. So the phase 1 has been completed and has been posted to these County of Renfrew's in-city platform for municipalities that are interested in looking at it. The final reports are there, and the whole purpose of this sort of phase 1 was to develop a plan, understanding what data is out there, and developing a plan for any future floodplain mapping if and when additional funds are out there. So it is an expensive process to undertake floodplain mapping, and so this is the getting ready stage, understanding what information is out there, what next steps would we have to do to undertake this floodplain mapping. And I'll stop there, Chair, before resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. We'll go back to information item number 1, the information dashboards. Sorry, I'll start with the warden and then Mr. Kelly.
This is a really useful tool. I made note of the numbers, the 1,200 lots when we were at the housing summit, because I was close enough to see that. I note with curiosity the number of lots that are over a hectare. Sorry, hectare. I can't remember how to pronounce that. Hectare. Okay, good. It didn't pop up like it did for Bruce. So no, I note with the the number of, some of those lots are quite big. So it just very quickly, those are the things that when I was looking through it. So thank you for this, and then I think Is this complementary to the RHIS system that's operated by the Rural Ontario Institute now, which was developed in conjunction with the Warden's Caucus? Is this complementary to that, or could it be included as a subset?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. To you, Warden. I would say it is complementary. It is separate. So for the RHIS, we are feeding them data for that so that they can host on their own website. So this is more internal, and again, it's a snapshot in time. So our data is not live, but I would say yes, it is complementary and information out there for use by people who, as they see fit.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, and thanks, Bruce and team, for this. This is great. When it was proposed, the idea somewhat behind it was that we were all going through, well, we weren't because we're not eligible, and this speaks to eligibility for the Housing Accelerator Fund. No, well, that's part of it. There's also another fund known as the Build Faster Fund that the province is giving out dollars to those cities that meet specific housing targets, whether they are building as many houses as they say they could or should over the next couple of years. So in the event that the province deems that the folks in charge of housing and affordable housing, which is the upper tier for the most case, and the service managers, which we are, determines that we also have a part to play in this, these housing numbers and knowing where we are in terms of targets or in terms of actuals will be incredibly important. So as a living document, this is incredible for us, hopefully going forward as we advocate to the province that we too are seeing numbers grow. Now I see that 2023 was a bit down over 2022, but still we are seeing a large number of housing starts throughout the area in the last 4 or 5 years. So this is incredibly helpful for us moving forward.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll go to item number 2, which is the Geographic Information Systems Training Day. Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I may have missed it, but how are we getting this information about the training day out to our planners, junior planners in the municipalities?
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Chair. A email was sent out to all the CAOs, and with that invitation indicating that it was for all municipal staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Item number 3 is the Bennett Meadows draft approval. Questions, comments? Item number 4 is the phase 1 of the floodplain mapping. Oh, Warden, go ahead.
So this is a question that I've sort of rattled around in my head for a while. With the implementation of this floodplain mapping, does that add more liability to our local municipalities in terms of issuing building permits, and then to us as the granting authority for severances and subdivisions? And should we be aware of that as we move forward and indicate that to our partners if it's an issue?
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chair. So just for clarity and for transparency, this phase of the floodplain mapping is not giving us the details that would be required for building permits and zoning bylaws at this stage. As the Manager of Planning Services, Bruce Howarth, mentioned, this is just the data collection stage. This is where we have gaps. We know we have gaps of information, gaps of data to create that information that you're referring to that could be implemented in the certain documents like the official plan and zoning bylaws.
Supplementary.
Thank you. I know that in some of the past instances when there has been flooding, there's always the question, well, the municipalities issued the building permit and they granted this and they granted that. So it's just, I wouldn't want us to get caught up in a lawsuit down the road, that's all.
Mr. Howard.
Sure. Thank you, through you, Chair. Yeah, it is a very important topic, and I hope I'm not speaking too far out of a turn, but this very discussion occurred just last week in the Township of Killu, Haggerty, Richards, where we were updating their zoning bylaw, and it came down to floodplain, or the floodplain bylaw portion of it, and there was a discussion on, well, where should that number be? And at the end of the day, as staff, we couldn't give them what the number actually should be. So we have information available from us from different sources, whether it's from our digital stuff. We talked to RP Renfrew Power Generation, but nobody actually has done the mapping for the Boncher River or through Round Lake or Golden Lake. And so as staff, it leaves us in a position, and especially the chief building official issuing those building permits, a level of uncertainty of number one, how we're not really meeting those objectives of keeping people safe or properties safe during times of events of flooding, and then how does that impact our liability, or whether it's municipal staff or just people's overall safety. So as Director Davis mentioned, this is step number one, identifying some of these priority areas, identifying what would it take to go that next step to start going to that process to actually map and say exactly where our floodplains are. And it's setting the table for when funds do become available, hopefully through grants, because it is not a cheap process by any means. It will be a lengthy process. So it gives us those next tools to advance in the future, whether it's at a local level, whether it's going to be municipalities undertaking these projects and saying, okay, for Township of Killu, Haggerty, Richards, we need to understand where our floodplain mapping is, whether they undertake that project on their own with whatever financial support they can get, or whether we undertake this as a Renfrew County as a whole for those priority areas. So those discussions haven't taken place yet. We don't have the funding or budget there to move forward to stage 2 yet, but this is just again stage 1, identifying those areas, those priorities, areas that need to be focused on, and identifying what information do we have already, or what information gaps exist, and where do we have to fill in those gaps to be able to take that next step.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad you provided some of that additional information, Bruce, because I have had some questions from some of the Property Owners Association members, and I think some of the feeling at the moment is that that number has already been established, but what you're telling me is that is still a work in progress.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is very much a work in progress, and we don't have that number, and we definitely do not have that mapping to say here's how it would affect individual property owners or affect the township. So it is we're trying to do the best we can with the information that we have. And so I don't want to make a representation to say we have it right, or that the number that, for example, in the Killu, Haggerty, Richards, that is the perfect number, or just because you meet this number that you're safe from all flooding. We're trying to do the best we can with the limited data that we have at our disposal. And future phases of this project, if we move forward to phase 2 or that actual floodplain mapping, then those are the numbers where it would, that process would give us that location of the floodplain to appropriately mitigate flood risk.
Thank you, and just maybe supplementary to that, does that mean that any severances currently in process would be delayed, or how are they being handled when we don't have that actual number yet?
Thank you, Chair. So typically when we are dealing with an area that as staff, whether it's planning staff or building officials at the local level, if we have properties where we think there's a concern, then it ultimately comes down to the property owner, and we would ask the owner to contact a surveyor to have an elevation survey done for each of those properties. So ultimately it comes down to the individual property owner at this time to demonstrate the negative. They would have to come out and prove that they are not within a floodplain or within a floodplain hazard.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? The warden.
So I, of course, will ask a question I already know the answer to. I'm assuming the Ministry of Natural Resources has been extremely helpful, because I know that they've downloaded the information on water management plans to local entities as opposed to, my impression is they haven't suggested any levels. They just say, go talk to these other folks, is my impression. And I hear that from some of the municipalities along the Bone Shore, but I also hear it along the Ottawa River as well.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you. So right now, the only locations within Renfrew County that we do have any data is along the Ottawa River, and that dates back to the 60s or 70s, which we know is old. And you are correct, the ministry, and I'm not promoting one, but in Renfrew County, we don't have a conservation authority where typically this responsibility would land to. So without a conservation authority, it does trickle down to the requirements of local municipalities, and the ministry has said municipalities are responsible for this. Through the grants for phase one, for example, monies were provided for 50% of that original project by Natural Resources Canada, but it was also filtered through the Ministry of Natural Resources. So Ministry of Natural Resources and NRCan were involved. They were a great assistance actually for us to develop the RFP and reviewing those documents that are there. But ultimately, the implementation of it and of future phases and how this gets done is going to be up to local municipalities to implement. What level of support will be there from NRCan or the ministry in future phases, we'll see. But we're hopefully we're in a position where if there are grant opportunities, we will be in a position to take advantage of those grants when they come available.
Supplementary.
So, thank you. So, nowhere in this planning process do I understand the ability to upload this back to the Ministry of Natural Resources exists, where it rightfully should reside. And you don't need to answer that because I recognize you have to work with them.
Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, Councillor from Town of Renfrew.
Thank you, Chair. Just to keep it simple in my mind, I want to buy property. It's on one of these floodplains, and I asked the municipality to get a building permit. The CBO comes out and says, you're on the lower floodplain. You have to provide a survey to say that whatever it is, it's not going to input on the floodplain. Do I then sign a waiver as a property owner saying, I know it's on a floodplain, I don't care, I want to build? Or what's the next step? Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Chair. So the quick answer is no. If there's a property that's within, we'll call it, like, especially with the Ottawa River, within the floodway, a known area where flooding is expected or is to occur, then the municipality should not be issuing building permits there, even if a person wants to sign a waiver or a liability. My recommendation, and the chief building official, when they're doing their process under the building code, would not be in a position to issue that building permit.
Thank you. So at this time, I think we're ready to go to bylaws, and back to you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Chair. I believe first we have a resolution, and this one is a little bit different. Item number 5 is that there's 2 resolutions in one, but maybe if it's okay, I'll read both resolutions, and then as the background's kind of similar.
That's fine. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So resolution number 1, that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council direct staff to undertake an official plan amendment and development of a regional incentives program. And the second resolution is that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council direct staff to pursue a change to the regulation under the Planning Act to become a prescribed upper tier municipality for the purposes of developing an affordable housing community improvement plan.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendations, so I'll go to recommendation number 1. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Town of Empire, seconded by the Warden. I guess we'll deal with one at a time, so comments or questions? Background first, yes.
So, thank you, Chair. And hopefully it makes sense if I do I'll try to deal with them individually then here. And luckily, we do have Treasurer Burke with us as well, who can hopefully answer any of the very difficult questions that might come up. So this goes back to our discussion at County Council. There was a memo that was prepared, and Council directed staff to bring that back through committee. And that background report is attached as Appendix 1. So the report covers two distinct matters. So with regards to Resolution 1, we're talking about the participation of the County of Renfrew in local community improvement plans. So right now, the county does not have the ability to participate or provide grants or funds to a local municipality to support their community improvement plan. So the steps that would need to take place would be, one, we'd have to do an amendment to the official plan, much like we did this morning with how there'd be a public meeting, and an amendment would be passed to the official plan that would allow us to undertake that process. And then number two, as part of that, we would also have to develop a regional incentives program. So prepare essentially a policy document identifying what items of that local community improvement plan are important to us as a county or a region as a whole, which programs do we want to participate in, and set a budget for that amount for how much does County Council want to put aside to participate with that program, and move forward with that. So we're anticipating at a very high level that this project, we could do it in-house if this is the direction that county wanted to go. And I know that CAO Kelly has already done a lot of background research into this and previous years, and we're thinking we probably could have this done in time for consideration for funding levels at the 2025 budget discussions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that background comments or questions. Councillor from Town of Petawawa.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, is this meant to, should this proposal come to fruition, is this meant to work in conjunction with existing SIPs and municipalities throughout the county?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, so this is specifically to support local community improvement plans. So we understand that not every municipality in Renfrew County even has a community improvement plan. But as it sits right now, under the Planning Act, the county is not allowed to provide any grants or incentives to local municipalities to support a local community improvement plan without these two steps being completed. So this would allow us, if a local municipality does have a program in place, and we can use the town of Arnprior and the recent request that just kicked off this whole discussion, where there was a brownfield tax incentive program in place by the local municipality, and they wanted the County of Renfrew to participate or help augment that. Undertaking this process would allow the county to identify the programs that we do wish to support at the local level, and then provide that level of funding as to whatever County Council will support.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's carried. You've also heard resolution number 2. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from Township of McNabb Braeside. Comments, questions? Background for.
Sure. I knew when I was doing it might get a little confusing. So background number 2 for this resolution. So right now under the Planning Act, the County of Renfrew, we do not have the authority or the ability to have our own community improvement plan. So to become as an upper-tier municipality, the Planning Act lists the municipalities that can have an upper-tier community improvement plan, and those include the regions, and the only county involved in there that currently has the ability to have one is the County of Frontenac. So if the county of Renfrew wanted to go down this path of establishing our own community improvement plan, first we would need to have a change to the Planning Act by legislation. So we'd have to work with the provincial government to get them to change the Planning Act to list us as one of these prescribed upper tier municipalities. After that is successful, or assuming that the process would be successful if approved by the province, then we could undertake a process to develop our own community improvement plan. And under the Planning Act, even prescribed municipalities, upper tier municipalities, we are limited compared to what a local municipality can do with their community improvement plan. So at the upper tier municipality, for those ones that are prescribed, if we become prescribed, there are 3 items that a community improvement plan at the upper tier could be used for. One is for our infrastructure. We don't have water or wastewater services up at the County of Renfrew, so that's not really applicable to us. The second one would be for development around transit or increasing development densities around high transit areas. We don't have that. That doesn't apply to us either. And the third one would be affordable housing. So out of the 3 options or 3 available things that we could have a CIP for, the only one that would actually be relevant to the County of Renfrew would be to support affordable housing. So if the county wanted to go down this path again, it would take first that change to legislation, to that regulation to become a prescribed municipality, and then we could look at issuing an RFP to request a consultant to prepare an affordable housing CIP. So we're estimating that if we go down this path, it would take approximately a year for us to go through that process to become a prescribed upper tier municipality, and then another year to have that CIP actually created, and looking at it, a consideration implementation time for the 2026 budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that background. Comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Did you have a question, Councillor from McNabb Braeside?
Yes. I'm just wondering if we get a little further explanation on how a community improvement plan would relate to the affordability and attainability goals that we're all trying to get. I'm still not clear about that.
Mr. Howarth.
Thank you, Chair. So the level of detail of exactly what we would support would be left to the recommendations of the consultant who would ever prepare that CIP for us. But ultimately, the decision would be up to County Council to say, here are the objectives that we have for housing. We want to increase affordability or attainability or whatever those metrics are that County Council wishes to support. That would be put into that community improvement plan, and the amount of funds in that would be allocated every year in the budget by County Council. So you would identify a project or say we will provide X number of dollars to a project provided that we get in return X number of affordable units, or say X number of rent geared to income units. So however we gear that would ultimately be up to County Council through the review and establishment of that CIP. But ultimately it is using property tax dollars that would then be put towards supporting a affordable housing program. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor from Town of Arnprior.
Thank you, Chair. As you're aware, Arnprior does have CIP, and part of our rules and regulations are that when there's something to be funded by CIP, we give 1% or 2% to a maximum of whatever the project is. So I can see when it comes back to the county, when we budget hypothetically $50,000 for the county, as developments come forward, we can say you get 1% of the total value and you have to give 4 units. So there's all kinds of avenues open when we bring this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Excuse me. Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Now we will move to bylaws, and I'll go back to you, Mr. Howarth.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I will redirect to our Senior Planner, Lindsay Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. This is in regards to official plan amendment number 44. I will read the recommendation. The recommendation is that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to approve official plan amendment number 44 to introduce an alternative notice provision policy in the official plan.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Town of Petawawa, seconded by Councillor from Laurentian Valley. Background, please.
Thank you, Chair. Attached as an appendix is a staff report and a copy of the official plan amendment and bylaw that's being proposed. As we all know, we held the prescribed public meeting this morning under the Planning Act and heard from the public. So since it was announced that Metroland is shutting down the print division, this has left the County of Renfrew and the local municipalities without a print paper that reaches the public to satisfy Planning Act requirements for circulation when undertaking an initiative that is municipal-wide, like this proposed OPA. So the Planning Act allows for local alternatives for providing notice if the official plan contains policies specifying details of the method of notice. So this amendment would introduce the required policies to allow municipalities to utilize alternative notice provisions under the Planning Act. So staff will still continue to use print media when available, and personal service or prepaid first-class mail is still an option for the county and local municipalities to utilize for notice. It is staff's recommendation to approve the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Councillor from Township of Braeside.
Thank you, Chair. So I do support this, and being from a municipality that has no newspaper now at all, communication with public is much more challenging. We pursued certain options. With respect to what we heard this morning, I would have to agree with former Mayor Reinwald. Having knocked on a lot of doors in 2 campaigns, there are a lot of people in this county that do not have email. I mean, you knock on the door and you say, "Could I get your email? We'll keep in touch." And he's got to turn around and ask his wife what his email is. You know, like there's a lot of people that are just not online, and that's the way society is going, and that's certainly cheaper and easier to provide notice that way. But to be fair to all of the public, I think we need to do a little bit better in having a method of communication, particularly with respect to planning, that is a bit more inclusive. So what I'd like to suggest, I'm just wondering if we can, instead of being required to mail to everybody in this county, which would be impractical in any way, and there's a lot of people would just be wondering why we're bothering them, you know, because they're just not interested. But for those people who are interested in getting notification on planning matters, can we have a snail mail list available that we would send out to anybody who's asked to be given first-class mail? That's the official term. And would that be too burdensome to add to this policy?
Ms. Bennett or Mr. Howarth?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I'll jump in. And so yes, it's something that we can do. Yeah, if we could start a roster and keep, if people were interested in receiving written or like by mail notifications, it's something with the direction of council. If that is the notice way of providing notice that council wants us to provide, that is possible. We don't need to make an amendment to the official plan amendment because this proposal is just providing options. So it's giving us options of here's how either the county or a local municipality, when you're reviewing your plan, how to provide that notice to the public, here are all your options available, and you can sort of, instead of being just held to the 2 options that are currently allowed by the Planning Act, which is by paper for municipal-wide ones, or by providing that first-class mail to property owners within 120 meters, If council wanted to provide an alternative to that, this policy allows that, which would allow us to create that roster if directed by council to provide written by mail notice to people who have asked for it.
Supplementary.
Okay, through you, Chair, thanks to Mr. Howarth for that clarification. Yes, the fact that it is listed in here, I would agree that that's covered, but how, I'm just wondering how would that work? Would that have to come to council on a case-by-case basis, and council would have to give direction to mail out to people in that list, or would it not make more sense to have that as a standing option written right in the policy, and we've sort of dealt with it once, that on any planning matter, if that we would normally post in newspapers, that they would get first-class mail notification.
I'll go to the warden first, and then Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you. I think we're all struggling with, and I respect and really sympathize with what my friend is trying to enunciate. We all struggle with, it'd be great to mail out individually to everybody. 600 meters in an urban setting is a lot more efficient than 600 meters in a rural setting. You get more people in, if you're doing a plan of subdivision in the town of Renfrew or the town of Arnprior or town of Petawawa, than you would if you're doing 600 meters on a plan of subdivision on Norton Road, or sorry, Whalen Road in Greater Madawaska, because if you go 600 meters, there's only 4 property owners, as opposed to 400 or 500 within 600 meters in one of the urban areas. So it's definitely a struggle to do that. But I think if you take a look at page 139, and it says the county and or local municipalities may develop a municipal consultation strategy. So I think what you're asking for is that we should follow the procedure and have a municipal consultation strategy set up. And I think it should be a larger one, which the CAO has talked about, with a subset around the Planning Act. So I think it's going to take a much more concentrated time of thinking than we could provide in this meeting and at County Council. So I think if we take a look at this and follow the policy which talks about setting up a municipal consultation strategy, we may be able to find a more detailed and possibly satisfying strategy than us fishing in the pool of what-ifs. So thank you.
Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just clarity for myself and maybe some others. What I'm reading in this is currently we have the option of newsprint. This is giving municipalities other options available to you. This is not dissuading you from saying you must do this one first, this one second, this type of notification. It'll be something that each municipality or the county evaluates on the development or the subdivision or the building process of how many people need to be notified within a radius, but it gives us various options that if we do not have the print media available to us, we do have other options. And I think that's, I hope that that's correct of what I've stated, but it's not saying that you will do only mail service or you will do only Facebook or any social media. It's giving you a lot of options instead of just having one. If I could just get clarity that I'm correct on that, thank you.
Ms. Bennett.
Through you, Chair. Yes, that is correct. So you can use, it's not just the one option, it's to provide multiple options of use.
Thank you.
Yes, from Councillor from McNabb Braeside.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair, I do agree with my colleague, the warden, that perhaps the details of the discussion is beyond proving this policy. But my concern is, again, in the wording here, is that the approval authority shall choose the most appropriate method of communication, which may include any or all of the following. It's really open-ended, And if we are committed to what we heard this morning, and I think that was representative of a lot of people in this county, in my opinion, then I think it needs to have a bit more teeth, saying perhaps listed as another option, or there needs to be some sort of commitment that we're just not going to forget about those that are interested in these matters and want to be notified. And I think it's their right, and I think that should be entrenched more in this policy.
Mr. Davis.
Not to dilute the conversation, but I think it's pretty understood within the policy document that all those options, and again, I'm repeating myself, maybe for my own benefit, that's there. We do have the prepaid first-class mail option, and that will be the discussion within our staff and within the local municipalities, how we proceed with these options for notifications. Thanks.
Councillor from Town of Armpire, and then I'll go back to Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the post office, but I want to be direct. When you have your public meeting for a certain property within the Town of Armpire, the residents of Town of Armpire get it. We don't send it to the whole county. The second part is the public meeting agenda, whatever, could be sent to all the other municipalities that the people can take a look at. They don't get the letter. But in my municipality, if it's my public meeting, I want everybody to know. Again, talking to the people, not talking, but the people that represented here today said they live all over the place within their municipality. And they were all here to show that. So as that municipality, each one of those guys should get a letter, but it should be specified wherever the public meeting is, those are the guys that get the first-class mail, in my opinion. Thanks.
Councillor from Greater Madawaska.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Today we had a public meeting and we had a very good turnout. And I believe that, Ms. Bennett, you mentioned various news medias that was published in. Just for my recollection, would you just be able to go through that list and so that people understand we still have that option of news media? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. So we put it into the electronic and paper copies. So the Daily News, the Valley Gazette, North Renfrew Times, Eganville Leader, Ottawa Valley News for Renfrew and Armpire, and then we also posted on the County of Renfrew website. It was sent to the local municipalities for placement on their website, and then we also had it on the County of Renfrew social media.
Thank you.
Mr. Haworth.
Thank you, Chair. I just also wanted to add that this policy is both for the County of Renfrew and local municipalities, and there's a huge array of different applications under the Planning Act, some that are where the local municipality is the approval authority for, and some where the County of Renfrew authority is the approval authority for. So this policy is written for both of us, both for the local and the County of Renfrew, this is the regional government, to come up with a circulation process that works for whoever's going to be ultimately making that decision. And a good example of that is just done today, where the meeting that we had this morning, this amendment that we're considering right now is countywide, so it affects everybody, every municipality, and that's why the list that our senior planner read out was, indicating this is how we got the word out to everybody, saying this is a proposal that affects you. Later on in the agenda, we have a municipal-specific official plan amendment for Robertson Line in McNabb Braeside. So that's where it's a County of Renfrew is still the approval authority for that. It's a county application, but it's very localized and specific to that application. So in that case, we did not put in any papers. For this, the circulation that we did for that was by putting, actually by mail, everybody that was affected by that amendment, we sent them the mailing address for that. So it's an example of same application. Both of them are official plan amendments, but the way of contacting the people who are going to be impacted by it are different. So this policy will allow an additional amount of variety for how municipalities or the County of Renfrew could provide that circulation or provide that notice to adapt to the local circumstances and how that's done. Thank you.
And maybe I'll just add on, I think I can appreciate where my colleague from Township of McNabb-Braeside is coming when he talks about, at least for county official plan amendments, that there be a mailing list for those who want to receive mail. Because the same individuals who spoke about the elected officials really representing the residents, I don't know how anxious they would be to support a move by the county to do first-class mail to every resident in the county when it came to an official plan amendment. Be interested to know if Daniel would have a idea off the top of his head how much that would cost. Oh, apparently planning staff have that number.
Sorry, just to confirm, so the OVTA does a mail out every year to all households in Renfrew County, and it does include South Algonquin Township on that, but it is, those numbers combined are about 60,000 households, and it's a cost of approximately $9,000 per mail out.
Certainly has a significant impact on the budget. Anyway, that's my only comment. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And back to you, Mr. Howard. Or no, sorry, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. So this is in regards to official plan amendment number 45. I will read the recommendation. The recommendation is that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to approve official plan amendment number 45 to redesignate lands from rural exception 4 to rural exception 20.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by the councillor from Horton, seconded by councillor from Town of Arnprior. Background, please.
Thank you, Chair. Attached as an appendix is a staff report and a copy of the official plan amendment and bylaw that is being proposed. Planning staff have reviewed the information and support the proposed amendment. So this amendment is in the Township of Horton, and it would allow the subject lands to finish the remaining development of the property to proceed through the consent process rather than through a registered plan of subdivision. The County of Renfrew official plan discourages more than 5 lots being severed through the consent process from a property. Due to the historic nature of the development on this property and the remaining lands, a plan of subdivision was determined not to be the ideal process to create the lots. So the applicant will still have to be required to submit and implement some supporting studies if a plan of subdivision, was submitted. So they would have to do a full hydrogeological assessment, a stormwater management plan, lot grading and drainage plan, and environmental impact study. And additional requirements may be applicable depending on the potential lot creation of the property and the services that are necessary, such as roads and access, stormwater management, geotechnical, and archaeological. The final layout of the proposed lots will be dependent on the results of the studies and further planning review. The prescribed public meeting under the Planning Act was held in March at the Township office in Horton, and no public concerns were raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. And back to you, Ms. Bennett.
I'll actually take this one, Chair. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion, bouncing back all over the place. Maybe I'll start with the recommendation that the Development and Property Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to approve official plan amendment number 46 to redesignate lands from rural exception 16 to a rural designation.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by councillor from Laurentian Valley, seconded by councillor from Town of Petawawa. And please go ahead with the background.
Thank you, Chair. So a public meeting was held at the Township of McNabb-Braeside offices back in March, and there were some public that attended, and I'll have a letter that I'll provide some additional background on that was received after this report was written. But as background, there is attached as Appendix Plan 4 the proposed official plan amendment and the planning report. So the current designation of the property, rural exception 16, that was put in place because there was a significant dip on this road that sort of presented a traffic hazard or a safety hazard. And the idea was that further lot creation in this area we didn't want any more lots to be created, any more congestion or any other lots being created past this point on Hanson's Creek. That issue has now been resolved, and so this amendment would remove that restriction and go back to just a straight rural designation that would allow, again, properties past that creek to be considered for further lot creation. So we did receive one letter of objection again since this report was written. All of the comments, though, that were provided weren't really related to the official plan amendment. It was more related to the actual construction of the improvement that was done on Robertson Line, talking about the entrances and some of the grade raises that occurred, garbage, drainage, environmental impact of cutting down some of the trees, and they had made a request for a reduction of property taxes. They asked for additional loads of gravel, and they requested a crew to come back and work on the embankment to improve a blind spot for one of the entrances. So I just wanted to note that we did receive the letter, but none of these concerns are really specific to the official plan amendment. So our recommendation stands that we recommend that the amendment be approved, and this ratepayer, those concerns are more appropriately directed to the local municipality through their Public Works Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howarth. Comments or questions? Warden.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions. On page 3 and page 174 and 175, the area outlined in yellow. So I'm assuming this is just a notional zoning, and that's probably the wrong way to phrase it, with the understanding that if there's any development along Robertson Line in the yellow, that there is consideration to the properties behind it, because my understanding from early days in planning was that ribbon development that is not ideal, where it locks up property behind. So can I just get some clarity on that, please?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. So yes, it was just to identify the area where the restriction would apply, and it would apply to the properties behind it. So it was the current policy that is in place does not permit any new lot creation that would result in accesses coming out onto Robertson Line through that yellow area. So even if the lot was outside of that yellow area, but the access would end up through that yellow area, lot creation was prohibited. But now that the issue has been resolved, we can get rid of that area in yellow. It will be taken off, and it will just be a straight rural designation without any, so the same lot creation policies that would apply in any other rural area would also apply within the Robertson Line.
Great, thank you. And then if I can take your attention to page 176, and I look at agency comments, Enbridge says, no objection to the proposed application, but Enbridge reserves the right to amend or remove development conditions. So I didn't see any development conditions, and I'm not aware that they can just arbitrarily add some. And is there a time limit? Can they do it in 20 years or 35 years or 6 months? So I have a little struggle with that.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So this is Enbridge's standard comment. They put this on their response to every application, no matter what it is and where it is. So in this area in particular, Enbridge doesn't even have services. So I don't imagine they will be coming back in the future to amend or remove development conditions, but it is their standard response to every planning application.
If I might, can we have a standard response? It's not in your interest, so stay in your own lane. I think we should be responding to that. It's not within their purview. If they want, I'll certainly offer comment on every development they propose, with the suggestion that they learn how to restore the land after they've gone through in a timely manner, and maybe pick up some cut-off pieces of pipe and occasionally fix the shoulder of a road without us having to chase them. So I'd be more than happy to offer anytime they do something, a comment, and maybe even pay, to put in the local newspaper every so often. So I think we have a response back to them that says, this is none of your business, essentially bugger off. So thank you.
Okay. I think staff will take that under advisement.
And hopefully wordsmith it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. And then I'll need a mover and a seconder for the report as a whole, please. Moved by Councillor from Laurentian Valley, seconded by Councillor from Tanapetawawa. Comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Under new business, we have the communal water wastewater systems and Councillor McKenzie from Township of McNabb Braeside.
Thank you, Chair. I guess it's not that long and it's fairly self-explanatory, so I'll just read out the resolution. So, whereas the province of Ontario stated a goal of 1.5 million housing units built within 10 years, whereas the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus has initiated a 7-in-7 regional housing plan to increase the supply of affordable housing across Eastern Ontario, whereas proximity to existing water and wastewater plants is a limiting factor in rural townships for higher density housing on suitable land for such development, whereas community water and wastewater systems will allow for higher density housing developments where hookup to large water and waste plants is impractical, whereas the County of Frontenac and other jurisdictions have formed a municipal services corporation to manage communal water and wastewater systems in their lower tier municipalities, and whereas a municipal services corporation can provide other services that are impractical for a single lower tier municipality to manage efficiently on their own. Therefore, be it resolved that the County of Renfrew Council directs staff to prepare a report within 3 months on steps to form a municipal services corporation to address communal water and wastewater systems in Renfrew County and the possible scope of services that could be provided for consideration by County Council. So the background in this, we all saw the presentation from Frontenac and involving Newterra technology. Myself and Deputy Mayor Hodnott, as well as some developers, and Mr. Howarth went to a Discovery Day at Newterra, and they showed us one of their operating systems in KERP. So we have a number of developers who are very interested in looking seriously at getting some water and communal water and wastewater systems on their land. And the big question from their standpoint of view is, they can't be operating that for perpetuity. So it's normal for the municipality to take it over after it's constructed. There's all kinds of steps involved in with that. As we heard from Frontenac, it's much more practical for a municipal services corporation that takes on these projects for multiple municipalities. I doubt that every municipality in the County of Renfrew would be interested in participating in this, but part of the direction is to staff to maybe survey the various municipalities and see who might be interested in participating in this municipal services corporation. That's the background. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. You've heard the recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor from Greater Madawaska, seconded by Councillor from McNabb Braeside. Questions, comments? Warden, please.
Just for the sake of ease, I need just a little clarity, and I'm in favor of this, by the way. The 3 months, I don't know, and I'm not suggesting I know the workload, but I don't know what we've asked for and if we add something else. So is 3 months a hard and fast, or is the expectation to report back to committee?
Go ahead.
I would defer to the CEO clerk on that. We did discuss it, and he did seem to think that 3 months was reasonable, but that's certainly not a hard and fast by any chance.
Through you, Chair, probably didn't ask anybody. I said, sure. 3 months is reasonable. I thought the hope was at least to bring it forward before the July break. I think that's where the 3 months was coming in, but it will be tight. I know that the planning is trying to get through a number of files. And we'd still like to consult with our friends at Frontenac. So I think we're all open to an extension of that 3 months if possible.
Well,
a future date. It would be nice to have a date, at least in terms of a sunset.
So I think if we recognize 3 months, but fully understanding in here that the department may come back at 3 months and say, look, we need a further 2 months because of either a change in legislation or some other structure coming forward. That's all. I don't like hard and fast deadlines for the most part imposed on staff with something that's new, because things change very quickly. So that's all I'm asking. And then the other piece is if we could, after form, add or join a municipal services corporation, because it might be as simple as joining Frontenac County or possibly us and Lanark County forming one, given the limited sizes or uptake on it. So that's all I was trying to do, is if I could have a friendly amendment to add or join after form.
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Yes, I would certainly support that. And again, I noticed, so I'd like a friendly amendment myself. You're the mover. So we're missing in the second last line there, water and wastewater systems.
Can that be done as a friendly amendment, or do you need an amended, moved and seconded?
Defer to the clerk. Yeah, defer to the clerk.
So it will be a friendly amendment. Any other questions or comments? I'm seeing none. All in favor? And that's carried. And we do have a closed meeting today, so I don't think it will take a long time, and we don't have much time until the next meeting starts. So can I get a mover and a seconder to move into close? Moved by the warden, seconded by councillor from Town of Petawawa. All in favor? And that's carried. Welcome back, everybody. We are back in open, and at this time, I would like to announce that the date of our next meeting will be Tuesday, May the 14th, 2024, and I will need a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councillor from Town of Petawawa, seconded by by the mayor. All in favor? The warden, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. All in favor?
Thank you.
That's carried. Thank you.
Lots of changes in Renfrew. I'm not sure that's one of them.